Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the Bathrobe Chronicles. You
We're
may remember us
here.
from days 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Still here, still the same hosts.
Still in our house.
Different bathrobes, though.
Yeah, so
Slowly going
things
through
are
our
really
collection.
going on here. There's
A lot of moving
has
and
been
shaking.
happening, Yeah, it's
Uh,
been big.
What are we doing, man?
What's up? Yeah, I don't know.
It's really weird. I was watching, when I tuned into the live stream, I was watching just a blank thing of us coming to sit down and me like going to look at the live stream on my computer. It's really, yeah.
Yeah.
Like right now I'm watching
I watch
myself
that
tell
all
the
the
joke
time.
previously that I just made.
All right, what are we talking about today?
We are just we were rambling, really. Oh, you meant mainly.
What should we be
What
talking
should we
about
be
today?
talking about? I think we're going to talk a little bit about employees during all of this, and especially if you're thinking of closing down, but even if you're still thinking about staying open, what are you going to do with your staff? You know, those people who
Yeah.
rely on you for their livelihoods, and
I mean, that's obviously one of the toughest parts about this entire thing, especially if you're still kind of open and deciding whether to shut down. I mean, that was like the hardest part of our decision to shut down, was just like, feeling like we were all of a sudden gonna push all these people who had a job into unemployment. Yeah, if anyone out there is actually closed and continuing to pay their staff, I mean, that's awesome. It's super great.
Yeah.
And definitely maybe like post up in the comments to let us know how you're doing it. But unfortunately for us, we have like about 12 to 14 people typically on our kind of payroll to keep our shop running, and that was just by far our biggest expense, and also just the kind of most extremely unsustainable thing that we could be doing when we're not actually open and floating anybody.
yeah, for sure. And I guess also just a quick word to those of you who are actually still open for business. Just definitely be considerate. With everything going around, some people might be less comfortable coming into work than you are keeping your float center open. Even before we actually decided to shut down Float On, we were just very upfront with our employees that if any of them, obviously didn't feel well at all, but even just didn't feel comfortable making the trip into work, or didn't feel comfortable at our float center, that they could absolutely let us know, and we wouldn't force them to come in. And I just sort of feel like that's the responsible thing to do here, and also just the kind humanitarian thing for your employees.
Yeah, just realize everyone's got a different comfort level with what's going on, and we just want to be respectful of that, and don't force people to do things if they're feeling uncomfortable because of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that being said, if you are closed and trying to figure out what this means and what to do in terms of staffing, we wrote up a couple things just based off of what we went through when we were closing down. So for us at least, we have a couple people who are managers in our shop, and we kept them on past the point of actually just shutting our doors down, because there was just a lot of stuff still left to do to just kind of prepare our shop, both from like communicating and newsletters and stuff like that, to very just like actual operational logistical stuff in terms of getting the tanks into a place where we could kind of shut them down, and getting the whole shop into a place that is kind of in hibernation mode.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how many emails you have to send out and phone calls you have to make, and just kind of all of these tasks, even in addition to the basic operational stuff. So even if you don't have managers, maybe just one of your staff members would be willing to stick around for a little bit and kind of help you out with that stuff. And there are definitely some things to keep in mind with that. One obvious one is that if someone has been working close to full-time or a certain set of hours, going on unemployment, being temporarily laid off and being able to claim unemployment will get them a decent chunk of that. Obviously not the whole thing. So if your hours that you're able to offer these employees aren't matching what they could get on unemployment, you're kind of doing them a little bit of a disservice by still keeping them on payroll. So certainly if you're keeping someone on board, try to condense down the work, try to get as many hours in there in a shorter period of time as you can, so that they can then start claiming their unemployment benefits as soon as possible, especially because the unemployment offices are just getting slammed right now, right? Like, float centers aren't the only ones who are shutting down and temporarily laying off workers. So, I guess just be considerate of that.
And, we've done a lot of just asking people, like across all of our different projects and organizations and everything that we've been dealing with all of this with. You know, we tell people the situation and that, like, you know, we obviously can't afford to keep paying people full time, and there is some amount of work to do, and we've been allowing that conversation to kind of decide what people want to do. You know, some people are okay with reduced hours, and like that actually sounds preferable to them than going on unemployment. And then some other people are like, hey, if I can't get at least, you know, 70% of my normal hours, it just makes more sense for me to go on unemployment. So people have different preferences, people have different things going on in their lives, and we've been really trying to like allow that to help steer what decisions we've been making.
Yep. And I guess, yeah, again, you know, the last thing, of course, is just make sure they still feel comfortable coming into work. Even if these are your managers, and even if you're not kind of running business as usual. You know, people also have different methods of transportation they take to get in. Maybe they need to ride a bus in order to even come into the shop to help you close things down. So even if this isn't, again, your normal operating hours for your float center, just check in with anyone who you're still requiring or even asking to work hours to make sure they feel okay with it.
And then when you actually are laying people off, just remember, you know, this is a tough time for everybody, and try to be as communicative as possible. I mean, like, obviously, I think we're all hoping that this is just like a temporary thing and we can hire everybody back. So they're not, you know, you're not actually just like laying people off entirely. You're kind of it's just a temporary situation. And, you know, check in with them. Let them know like how things are going on your end as well. Like for us, we're still figuring out, like, we don't know when we're going to open back up, right? Like, we have no idea in terms of when it's going to feel like that's the right decision. And so, like, I think obviously our staff is going to probably want to hear from us throughout this, just sending out a couple messages, letting them know like what's going on and what we're thinking and where things are at.
Yeah, and if possible, during the process of actually, you know, laying people off too, actually hopping on the phone and trying to get them on the line. You know, some people have questions, they don't quite understand what this means. Even just hearing your voice acting, you know, calm and reasonable during a time when the entire world seems to be freaking out can be really nice for people, and just lets them know that you're taking care of them. So whether you have a manager do that or whether you do it yourself, again, that personal touch is going to go a long way. Even just reading the news, you hear a bunch of complaints these days about companies that are doing a really poor job of this and a really poor job of communicating with their staff through this entire crisis. And yeah, you know, again, that extra touch will actually make you seem like a good business owner, and it'll make people understand more and be happier to come back into work when you do open back up. So, yeah.
Just remember that once you lay people off, they don't work for you anymore. So
Yeah.
You can't like force people to have phone calls with you or do kind of required mandatory check-ins with your staff or stuff like that. You know, obviously this is do as much as feels right in terms of you reaching out, and let people kind of dictate their own preferences in terms of how much they want to be communicative and dealing with you on their end.
I'm not allowed to make the staff take my entire wardrobe to dry cleaning anymore.
Because the dry cleaning place is closed.
And also I couldn't do that because they're temporarily laid off.
Yeah. So, which
Double
we
whammy.
found out when we got to the dry cleaning place.
Double whammy.
Another thing that we've been doing that is interesting, so here in Oregon, there's actually a couple of years ago, maybe like, I think it was 2016, they passed a statewide law that actually required every company to let people accrue paid sick leave. And we decided at Float On just to turn that into paid time off instead of paid sick leave.
It's basically paid sick leave, but people don't have to lie to you.
Yeah, so it's a little easier for both of us. So that was a nice cushion for all of this, is that people do have kind of accrued paid time off hours that's been helpful. And I guess just on a more general note, like, that is something that is, if you're not in a state that requires that, which I think most states don't require that, maybe on the other end of this, it's something to consider actually adding in as a policy. I mean, it wasn't really something that was on our mind because we do just have, like most float centers, kind of hourly, you know, a couple dollars above minimum wage sort of staff where typically you don't see those sorts of benefits. And I definitely had that kind of natural business response at first, like, oh boy, like, is this going to be a crazy expense? Are we going to be able to deal with this? And honestly, like, we did, and we were, and it really wasn't that crazy. Like, we were able to manage. And that way, if people are sick, they can actually have some hours to be able to stay at home and not have to make this like weird decision between trying to pay their rent and trying to go to work while they're sick. So
Yeah,
aside from all this
yeah,
stuff,
in times like this.
yeah, I'm sure
just
you've
in
heard
general
about this,
too.
but
Yeah,
not a bad thing to consider as you reopen is having some sort of policy like that in place.
And it's like here in Oregon, it's 1 hour of accrued sick leave per 30 hours worked, I believe.
And there's some rules about like how many, like the max that you can accrue and how many hours can roll over from year to year and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can kind of do the math of how much that increases your payroll, right? It's about by a 30th. That said, yeah, with those paid time off banks, giving people access to the sick leave banks or paid time off during this last payroll that you're giving them before you lay them off can be really nice. That's a nice buffer that they can have legitimately, even if they're not sick with COVID-19 right now. That's the reason that they're taking time off is really for sick leave. It's what, here in Oregon, we're talking about kind of mandatory sick leave and other places as well, even on the national level. So sick leave is something that people are considering in a much broader sense than float centers, but again, keeping it narrow, just something nice that you can offer your employees on that last paycheck to give them a little bump since, again, unemployment is going to be less than what they're used to pulling in.
And it's good for sanitation too, right? Like we're kind of, restaurants like emphasize this as well, but like we don't want staff coming in while they're sick to work in our float centers, even during normal times. Like we're trying to do our best job to stop any spread of disease under any conditions when we're up and running, and that is definitely a great way of doing that.
Yeah, I guess the last thing that we had for our kind of list of big bullet points here to cover is just make sure to stay informed on all of this stuff, right? There's new measures and new proposed kind of stimulus packages for small business coming out every day at the state level, at the national level. Probably even your city is working to try and figure out how they can support small business during a time that's obviously struggling, and they don't want to lose their entire small business community. So, they're going to be trying to get that information out however they can, but it's also just up to you as a small business owner to really make it a point to stay informed on all of this stuff. Pay attention to the news, hop on the Float Collective on Facebook and pay attention to what people are saying there. Same thing, tune in daily, watch us every day at noon. We'll report everything that we know.
Yeah, we will be giving you a direct feed of government programs.
Straight from the White House.
Directly from here.
So yeah, again, just in general, be on top of that stuff because there's going to be a lot of places where you can get tax breaks, where you might even be able to get grants or money coming in, where you can help your employees
loans,
too. Yeah.
Disaster loans. I like a lot of states, the entire West Coast, and I'm sure many other states have actually declared this a disaster, and that kind of opens up various different very low interest loan options for people.
So yeah, keep your head in the game, feet on the ground, head in the game. Thumbs in the air, I think, is the other part of that.
Yeah, feet in your shoes as well. And arms in your bathrobes.
Let's go to the, see if we have any comments on here. I think we're good.
Great, okay.
Yep. Give it a second, see if anyone chimes in with any, anything they want us to cover. But, yeah, otherwise, thanks for tuning in. It's honestly been kind of nice having a normal routine for the last few days. Again, I usually have a normal routine. This is just getting back
very responsible. We're very responsible people.
Totally. This is. It feels.
Wake up 6 a.m. every day.
What a crazy thing to be wearing robes this late in the day.
30 or 40 miles.
Am I right?
This is a costume. Let us know if there's other topics you guys want us to cover as well. Feel free to just make posts onto our Floating Solutions Facebook page.
Yeah, we have a whole list of topics that we're planning on going over, but we're covering the biggest ones first, so they'll just get worse and worse over time unless you guys chime in. See you all tomorrow.
Yeah, have a good one.